Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. It is now time to meet our yoga teacher. Yes, we're on, well, it's a second form of it because we interviewed her counterpart last week from One Tree Yoga. That was Gabe Hop. And now we have live today on the show, Alison Tigges joining us here live once again, onetreeyoga.com from Omaha, Nebraska. Really a lot more to what you think yoga is. I've learned so much from these ladies and excited to get to know Alison now one-on-one today. The website, onetreeyoga.com. She's offering in-person and also online classes, YouTube videos, you name it, they do it. Say hello. Welcome to the show again. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Great to be here.
Yes, for first new timers, I should say. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we want to get into like personal details, but tell us about One Tree
Sure.
Yoga to start, and then we'll go
Yeah,
personal.
happy to. Yeah, so like you mentioned, I am one of the co-owners of One Tree Yoga. We are located in Omaha, Nebraska. We have two locations, so we have lots of classes in person for anybody that's nearby or visiting. And then we also, like you said, we have Zoom classes where you can do them live with us, like while we're teaching, or get the recorded version if you can't make it. And then yeah, we have a YouTube channel as well. So our goal is try to, offer and kind of get yoga out there to as many people as we can.
All right. Well, let's get to know you. We got to start off with the basics. I mean, I know a little bit about you, your family life, but
Sure.
start from the beginning details. Clearly, you love yoga. You're a mom.
Yep.
You're a wife. Tell me more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Um,
Where do you start,
and
right? It's a hard
yeah, where
question.
do I start? I'm like, let's see, I was born. No. Um, yeah, so in terms of yoga, maybe we'll start there. I did my first yoga class when I was a senior in high school. I had a couple of friends that were like, there's this hot yoga thing, like you should come try it with us. And I grew up an athlete. I played lots of sports. I was a dancer, so I was always very active. I was also kind of injured a lot, even younger, when I was in high school and younger. And so I kind of saw it as this, like, yeah, cool, this is like another physical thing I can do. It'll be good. I've heard it's good for you. And right away I was pretty hooked and continued to practice yoga through college, through grad school. I was like a poor grad student, so I would clean the yoga studio in exchange for free yoga. And then I don't know, I think after grad school I didn't want to be done with school, so I decided to do yoga teacher training, and kind of just as a way to learn more. I was just super into it, and then ended up teaching sort of part-time as I was working, and then that shifted from teaching part-time to teaching full-time and managing the studio. And then about 5 years ago, Gabe and I took over the studio as owners. So I've really sort of seen all the things and kind of been at every step of sort of the business. But I've been doing yoga for over 20 years. I've been teaching for, I don't know, almost 13 years now. And so,
Did you
safe to
ever like
say, I love it.
envision you wanted your own studio? Was that a
No.
goal or dream, or it just, how did that part come about?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily. I mean, I love teaching. Like, teaching is ultimately what I love. I love to share yoga with people. I love to teach people how to teach yoga. So Gabe and I lead a teacher training together. That's definitely my passion. The business side was always something I think ultimately I didn't know. I didn't know. I knew enough about it to be a little bit you know, cautious, like, I don't know, this is a big responsibility. It's a lot of work. Can I do it? And, when the opportunity arose, Gabe and I ultimately decided like we had to take the opportunity. She and I have both worked together for so long. We work well together. So I knew, having a good partner in crime would be helpful. And it sort of turned into this thing that I'm just so glad we did it. It's really been a great experience. It's been difficult. We talked, I think, a few episodes ago with like COVID and everything. Of course, there's always challenges, and owning your own business and, having little kids and all of that. But I've learned, so much. And I think it sort of morphed into this. I didn't necessarily see this as maybe the path, but here we are. And, I love it.
Great. And let's talk more about that yoga journey in a sense and, what brought you here, how you met Gabe, and give us the
Yeah,
timeline and breakdown of that. Like, could you actually remember like your first yoga class? Or
I
who you went
totally
with,
do.
how
I
you got
do.
involved? How did you even get started?
Yeah, I remember just trying it with friends. And I remember being like shocked at how hard it was. It was a hot yoga class, the first
Okay.
one. So that's definitely like you dive into the deep end. But I was 18, so I could handle it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember leaving being like, wow, like I don't I didn't quite know why I felt great, but I just felt great. Like sure, my like body felt great. It felt great to stretch and move, but there was like something else that I couldn't quite put into words. And I don't know that it's still easy to do. We talk all the time about, there's the physical practice of yoga, but there's this whole other piece that this like the subtle side that is hard to like describe how, because it's different for everybody. But I think that's what kind of kept me coming back. Yeah, Gabe and I used to practice yoga together in the same classes for years. So we were both, I was probably still in grad school or shortly out of grad school. Gabe was living in Omaha for a while at the time, and we would go to the same classes with our teacher. And then she moved away a while, and then when she came back, I was the manager, and we needed a manager for our second location, and so she got hired on, and
Ah.
we were kind of the duo ever since. So
Ah, got it. Okay, I didn't
yeah.
realize that. So she came,
Mm-hmm.
she started managing another. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
So we were both kind of managing the two locations, and then we started doing teacher. So we started to lead teacher training together. So we've been doing that for, gosh, this is maybe our 10th year. So the good news is when we sort of kind of shifted into, okay, we're going to own this business together, we already knew that we worked well together. That part was easy. We knew how to communicate. So that part I wasn't too worried about, thankfully. So
All right. Well, now let's get off of yoga for a second. I know it's one of your favorite things to do, but do you have other hobbies?
yeah,
And,
it's
and
so
I don't know if you
funny.
mind sharing. Yeah, because we always talk
Sure.
about yoga. I would like to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly yoga was always my hobby. It was one of my biggest hobbies, and then it sort of morphs into your career, and it's kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, I do have other things I like to do, other things that keep me busy. So, like you mentioned, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. So I live in Omaha. I have a husband. His name is JJ. We actually met at yoga before I was a teacher. So he loves yoga too, which is nice. We kind of get that piece together. And then I have an 8-year-old daughter, and my son is almost 5. So I have two kids. One is my daughter's in school, my son's in preschool, like part time. So we're still kind of doing that like preschool shuffle business. And yeah, I mean, I feel like now a lot of my free time is, if I'm not working, it's spent, going to my kids' activities and watching them play sports and do all the things they love. Um, but I'm also, because of my background in sports and dance, I've always been an avid um into all sorts of
It's
exercise.
athlete. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
athletic.
totally. So I still, I lift weights, I go on lots of walks, I love to be outside. So I'm very active. Honestly, anymore, yoga is kind of the mental piece for me more than the physical. I love to practice like slower, kind of more meditative styles of yoga because I do so much other stuff in my free time that I don't really need another exercise. I need like something to chill me out. And that's really what yoga does. So I find it kind of gives me that balance. Yeah. So I feel like I try to find time to do the stuff I love. And then otherwise I'm doing the mom thing and doing
Well,
the drive
it's
my kids all over town thing.
that's what I was going to ask you. Tell me more about the family life, the lifestyle. Wait, so the
Yeah.
ages are so 8 and
8 and almost 5. So my son
okay,
will be 5 next month. So
okay.
yeah, we're just getting into that. Like
Well, because
now
Gabe's
I
not
get
into that yet. Her kids are
Gabe's not
younger.
into it
So
yet.
I
Nope, her
said to
kids
her,
are
I'm like,
younger.
how are
Yeah.
you? Because yeah, I know it too. I have a 6 and 8 year old. So
Hmm.
it's 3 nights a week that I'm running to sports.
Yeah.
And what if you have to be at the studio? How do you manage classes? Do
It's
you have to give that up now? Like, tell me,
yeah,
you have a better
it's
handle on it now.
it's
Yeah.
an into yeah, we're definitely like I'm starting to get into that phase, right? And where Gabe's kids are younger, she's still, I was there a few years ago where you're kind of like with them all day. So at night you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the yoga studio and teach. Bye. But now it's getting trickier. And so, you know, I've always been pretty open, Gabe and I, with each other and with my husband, that like as our family lives shift, that's going to shift our work schedule. Like right now, I get my bulk
Hmm.
of the like yoga studio owner work done while my son's at preschool. So I've got like 3 hours to like get the emails answered and do payroll and
Oh yeah.
kind of all of that stuff. And then yeah, I would often teach. I teach more evenings, weekends, not as much during the day. It still works for now, but like you said, I'm kind of in that cusp where like it's getting a little bit trickier. Luckily, my husband has some flexibility with his job. So if I'm teaching that night and he has to take her to practice or whatever, it's no big deal. But I definitely foresee, as you know, my kids are both going to be in school all day next year, like teaching during the day is probably going to be more doable for me than evenings and
Hmm.
weekends. And so, it's all, I think if yoga's taught me anything, it's like nothing's permanent. It's just kind of all
To
in
be
flux, and
flexible.
we got to be
Yeah.
flexible. But it is a thing because, of course, my family comes first, but I also love that I have this job that I love and that I can do. We just kind of have to move some pieces around sometimes.
Now, do your kids do yoga? And does your husband do yoga still?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
tell
my
me.
husband, we met at yoga. Of course, the joke always is once we had kids, like he's like, I never get to go to class anymore. And I'm like, well, that's because you have to watch the kids when I go to class. But he does do a lot of yoga still at home. He just doesn't get, studio time as much. Even though I try, I'm like, you go. I don't have to teach tonight. You go to class. Um, my kids see us doing yoga and meditation. They kind of like run around and they're not
They
like
can't sit
super
still,
they're
right?
not
Okay,
super
okay.
focused, but they definitely will be like, Mom, like look at my down dog. And I'm like, good job, buddy, that's awesome. I it's like I never wanted to be this thing that I like force on them. I think I hope just by them seeing us doing meditation and doing yoga and being active that they'll sort of just like pick that up as like, oh, this is just kind of what we do, like
Mhm.
how it is.
But so for now, they're not like religiously taking classes with you. And
No,
I do
we
think some people say, oh, yeah, my kids, they do what I do. But I'm like, I can't picture my kid focusing like that. It's bad enough
yeah,
even at a sport like we do baseball, wrestling, soccer, hockey,
so many
football.
things.
And it's just like, but you can't, the coach can never get their attention. But you never know.
It's
There could be
true.
like
Well,
what do you
kids
call
got
them?
energy to
Yeah.
burn off.
No, but there's what do you call those kids that are oh my gosh, I can't think of the name right now. But when they're not a Vasant, what's the word I'm looking for?
Oh.
They're just really good at something at like they're playing
Oh, they're
piano at
just
age
like,
four.
yeah, I know what you're
Like
saying.
so I'm
Yeah,
thinking
they're
you never know. You could
exceptional.
have
Yeah. It's true.
exactly.
They could be like the young little yogi. Yeah, no, my kids are both. I mean, I think definitely what it's helped, it's like now it's like they're just kids. They need to run around and do all their things. But being able to utilize like breathing when they're upset or when they're frustrated to talk them through like, hey, like relax your body, take a big breath. And like some
Hmm.
of those skills, I feel like I didn't learn that as a kid. So
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to teach just little pieces of that to my kids. And, as they get older, I think, you hope that some of that sticks and they'll have more interest in like, hey mom, I want to learn more about this. And
Now, when you were young, what did you envision yourself doing? Could you go think back to like
not
elementary
this.
days, high school
Yeah.
days, then college? So tell me
Yeah,
about that transition
sure.
with your education, and then what did you see yourself doing originally?
Yeah, I mean, not this for sure. I actually after college I went to grad school. My master's is in criminal justice and public administration.
Oh,
So
wow.
I worked more on the research side. So my job for a while after grad school was I worked at the university here in Omaha, and we did a lot of research in different aspects of the criminal justice system in Nebraska, and I loved it. There's things I really loved about that job, but man, like sitting all day at a desk was really like it killed me a little bit. And so I was teaching yoga on the side because I loved it. And when the opportunity to manage the studio came up and I knew I'd be able to like, support myself because teaching yoga only is a difficult way to support yourself, but the management piece would allow me that. I was like, I've got to at least try. Like ultimately, whether it was my master's degree or yoga, like my thing was I wanted to help people and to make some sort of difference. It was just a very different way than I was doing. And so I kind of took the leap and then I never really looked back. So it's definitely an interesting shift, although like I said, in some ways it's not so different. Like a lot of the stuff I learned in college and grad school, helps me run a business. And, a lot of the stuff I love about yoga is, stuff that I think ultimately helps people no matter what industry you're in. But I definitely, as a kid would have never thought this. I mean, I was always, like I said, active and interested in movement. And so maybe this part wasn't a huge surprise, but yeah, it's funny how life kind of takes you in directions you never thought.
It's so true. Exactly. So let's talk more specifically now about yoga and what areas of focus do you have and what is your most passionate
Yeah.
thing about yoga? Tell me more about your interest with yoga specifically.
Yeah, I think the best thing is that, man, I've been doing this so long, and I tell people all the time, like, I'm not bored yet, like it's not boring. There's always something new to learn. There's always more to learn, and there's always sort of different pieces of the yoga practice that like pique my interest, like, oh yeah, I want to learn more about that. But ultimately, I think my first love of yoga, my first true love was always anatomy and alignment, like kind of the body. Like I've always been fascinated by the body and how it moves. And so, in my training and some of my training, as I've, been teaching so long, Gabe and I both always try to keep up our learning has a lot, been really brushing up my anatomy skills. I love to learn about the body in that way, and then how that relates to yoga poses and how we teach yoga poses. And so, in our teacher training program, I sort of take the anatomy stuff and teach that. So I'll never not love it. That's kind of always been my favorite. But the older I get, and the more sort of into the deeper aspects of the practice I get, I definitely have seen a shift for me personally. And I think this happens to a lot of us that have been doing it a while, is, moving from it being all about the body and all about the poses to kind of the more philosophical side of yoga or the softer side of yoga. And so Gabe teaches the portion of philosophy in our teacher training. And even just getting to, learn from her year after year and learn from some of my other teachers, it's definitely an area that I have grown a lot more interested in and learned more about, because it affects our daily life every day. It's like how to be a good person. Like that's, like so helpful, right? So
Yeah.
um yeah, I kind of would think those are definitely two areas I love, but to me it's like kind of always evolving. I also really am passionate, Gabe too, about teaching people how to teach yoga. Like I think often in yoga teacher training programs, like yes, you have to learn a lot about yoga. It's like you get your master's degree in yoga, but to be able to teach somebody how to confidently like go into a room and tell people what to do and like lead them through a class and teach them, like not just guide them, but to actually like teach a subject is a really hard. It's a really hard thing to do, and there's a lot to it, more than most people think. And so we both feel really passionately about that. So I'm always proud of our teacher training program, because we really teach them not only about yoga and all aspects of it, but also like here's how to effectively and confidently like go in and teach a class. It's definitely a skill that I want people that sort of leave our program to feel
Oh,
empowered.
I could picture you being like so compassionate. Look, it's intimidating to try something new, right? And
Of
being a
course.
beginner at something, there's so many things I'm beginner and like even with my
Mm-hmm.
kids and I'm trying to do a sport or something
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
feel inferior, I feel embarrassed. I could picture someone walking into your studio, but you being so compassionate and kind where like I'm gonna cry. Like you make it such a good experience for them, right? Like I'm sure, that's what you need to be for someone because
Yeah.
there's people
I
out there
mean,
who want to do what you're doing and learn, but they're so scared. So what would you say
it's
to
so
someone
true. Yeah.
coming into the studio and how do you, treat them? It's like you give them a warm, like hug, like a
Yeah.
blanket.
I mean, if they want one. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I hope so. I hope that that is how people feel when they come into our studio.
Speaking to
It's
you both the past
yeah.
few weeks, you guys are so compassionately
No,
kind
well,
and it's hard to
thank
find.
you.
I mean, I'm from New York.
Yeah.
Maybe that's different, but I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, right.
And I don't get out
We're
much
the
because I have
Midwest,
kids, but it'd be
Yeah.
so nice to come to your studio. It's like a
Yeah.
family, like friends, and like that camaraderie, which I miss having. I don't have that much anymore, but
Yeah. It is true. It's a community. It's a
that's
community
perfect
of
word. Yeah.
people, and it's yeah, I hope that's how people feel. I think that's what we try to remember, that like everyone's coming in with their own stuff, and we don't know anything about like what they're dealing with and going through. And the
Yeah.
little bit they share that we do know, like sure, but like there's, all of us have stuff going on. And so, yeah, my job is like, to meet you where you're at and to like be compassionate and kind, and, to teach you this subject that I love, that I think will help because it's helped
Mm-hmm.
me.
Have you become
And
friends
yeah,
like with some of your clients that they come
for
in? Like,
sure. I mean, it's always like a tricky sort of thing because it's like, I'm their teacher. There's like boundaries for sure that,
yeah.
you have to be, but definitely you get to know people, like family. And you see a lot of these people through different phases of life and highs and lows and struggles they go through, and triumphs and job changes and marriage, divorce, and kids. And you get to see people through sort of like all these phases of life. And with mine, like they get to see me through like before Allison had kids and now when Allison has kids. And so you really do get to be this like cool little community of like people that are kind of we're all there for like some bigger reason that I don't know that anyone even necessarily knows fully what that is, right? But it's like there's a reason I think that people choose like to step into a yoga studio maybe versus go to a spin class. And nothing against spin class, I love a spin class, but like
Hmm.
there's this deeper, bigger thing happening. And I think people like sense that or know that, but they don't, we don't really get it till we get it, that like there's something kind of bigger that goes on in the walls of a studio, I think, or in a yoga class, which is really special, I think.
Oh, this is great. We still got some time.
Yeah.
All right, to learn more about you, just to remind everyone,
Yep.
onetreeyoga.com. Tell us how we find you.
Yep. So that's our website, onetreeyoga.com. That really, has the bulk of information, has our schedule. You can read up about all of our teachers. We have a lot of amazing teachers. I mean, you guys get to hear from Gabe and I every week as owners, but we have amazing teachers, all walks of life, different classes. We have offer a lot of different styles. So, if one style is not your jam, like I think you can find something you would like. So, website is onetreeyoga.com. If you have specific questions, you can always email us. The email is info at onetreeyoga.com. You can find us on Instagram or Facebook, One Tree Yoga. We're on YouTube, One Tree Yoga, where you can find the great thing about YouTube is it's free, which is nice, but also we've got tons of different classes. You'll see some of our other teachers on there as well. We've got like 5-minute classes up to 1 hour classes. We've got meditations on there. And so it's nice little snippets that sometimes, we don't always have time for an hour and a half class. Like I know I don't do that every day. It's like for me, it's all about where can I find little moments to fit yoga in, because sometimes it's not realistic to, have 2 hours to dedicate to it. So yeah, that's where you can find us. And we've got some cool events coming up for people that are local. So Gabe is leading a sound bath restorative class with her friend Sarah. So Sarah plays this like amazing music, and
Aw.
Gabe leads like some restorative poses, and it's pretty amazing. So that's happening later this month in March. We've got one of our hot yoga teachers, Kim. She's a wealth of information if you love hot yoga. She's leading a couple of posture clinics at the end of this month, beginning of April.
Got me
So people
thinking.
that want to
Mhm.
break down their poses in hot yoga. Let's see, we've got a guest teacher coming in town in April. It's actually Gabe and I's yoga teacher, Teresa, who is so amazing. She lives on the East Coast now, but she's coming back to Omaha to do a weekend workshop. And then I'm doing a wall ropes class later in April too. So we've got a lot of fun stuff happening for people that live close. Although Teresa's workshop will be on Zoom as well. So people that want to um, learn from her, you can also access that via Zoom, which is great.
Awesome. So typical day, what would you say? Tell me the time you
Oh,
wake up, go to bed.
yeah.
I guess typical
My days.
weekdays,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
gonna say, like, I'm a creature of habit, but
Because
yet,
you
as you
got
know, with like kids, it's also
it's all
like
different. Mm-hmm.
stuff's always happening. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
I've always been a morning girl, so I am typically up at 6, which is actually late for
Wow.
me. I used to be like a 4:30 in the morning girl, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. I don't do that anymore. But get up at 6, kind of get myself ready, get the breakfast ready. Then the kids get up, we go to school. Then that's usually when I go to the gym, or if I'm not going to the gym that day, that's when I try to like get downstairs and do some practice or plan some classes. And then I have my 5-year-old, almost 5-year-old with me in the mornings. He doesn't go to preschool till the afternoon. So we're usually doing, who knows what, some adventure. And then when he's at school, like I said, that's like, okay, I got 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
get my work done, answer the emails, do all the things. And then, like, after school is when it's, take the kids to all the stuff. If I teach, that's when I go teach. Some days, if I didn't get to do my yoga or meditation in the morning, then I'm doing it at
Do
night.
it at night.
So yeah, sometimes I actually find at night for me, I'm somebody, because I'm such a morning person, like I wake up and I'm like, life is great. But by the end of the day, I'm frazzled and like
So what time
exhausted.
is
So
bedtime about? What time do the kids go
well,
to bed?
the kids go to bed at like 8. And so then usually I'm, in bed by like 9 or 10. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired. But, by the end of the day, sometimes like the meditation is what like, all
Calms
right,
you,
let's like
soothes
calm
you.
down and like
Mm-hmm.
stress relief, because the end of the day is when I can get kind of like up in my head.
All right. Well, you mentioned breakfast. I got to ask because I have two little ones that don't eat well.
Yeah.
I don't know. You seem like you're a healthy eater. Do your kids eat like fruits and vegetables? Like what's on the breakfast? Like
I mean, we try. It's,
we don't. They don't even want eggs. They want cereal. They'll
yeah.
have milk, cereal,
Yeah.
basics. Like you don't
My
cook like
kids,
fancy like yogurt. They won't eat that. I'm
no.
like I can't. All right. So
Yeah,
it's okay to have
I'm
kids that
rarely
eat
cooking.
regular things
I
for now.
think so. I mean, yogurt, my kids will eat, and fruit. Like, and my trick always at like lunch and dinner is like, okay, you eat the vegetables first and then the others. Like, that's like, I'm like, you have to eat this first. And that's the way. Otherwise, they won't do it. I get it. If I give them a plate and just veggies are on the corner, suddenly I'm like, well, why didn't you eat those? Like, so I just have to trick them.
Got it. Got it. All right. Good to know. And in our last 2 minutes here today,
Yeah.
what did you want to share with everyone? Clearly, you're passionate about what you do. You have a very successful business, and your love of yoga is shining through here. OneTreeYoga.com, by the way. How did you want to leave off for us?
Yeah. I think, my biggest thing I always want to tell people is, yeah, like you said earlier, it's, the fear is real, the fear of the unknown, or maybe you did practice yoga and you kind of like got away from it. I think with COVID, a lot of people's behaviors changed and habits changed. My biggest plea would just be like, come back, try it. Like most people don't realize how much they need it or they missed it until they kind of come back and see like, man, this is really great. And it doesn't have to be this intense, I got to go to yoga every day or 3 times a week. I mean, even like once a week, you make it to class and then maybe you like sprinkle it in, like I said, throughout the week in other ways. I just think a little bit of yoga is better than no yoga at all. And most people, once they regularly do it, they get
Mm,
it, but it's
got
easy
it.
to sort of let the fear hold you back. So don't.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today. And if
Yeah.
someone
Thank
wants to
you.
reach out, go to OneTreeYoga.com. And great getting to know you. But, oh, what's your favorite food?
Oh gosh, that's so tricky. I'm a big meat eater actually,
Okay.
which, people are always surprised because they think all yogis are vegans, but not this girl. So I'm like give me like a medium rare steak and I'm like so happy.
Favorite type of music?
Favorite type of music. I love it all, except I'm not a big country music fan, which, sorry to anyone that is,
That's
but
okay.
otherwise I like
You're
love
just
all
country
of it.
music fan. I'm from New York. Everyone
Yeah.
hates me. I'm
Yeah, I
country, but
am.
okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Like, are you like more hip hop? More like,
I do love hip hop. That's what I listen to when I
are you
like
down with
exercise.
OPP? Like, I'm so
Yeah,
old
that's
school. I
right.
don't know.
No, no, I love it. So yeah,
Pop.
definitely hip
All
hop,
right.
definitely whatever my kids, half the
Of
time in the
course.
car, it's like
All
radio,
right.
like the pop hits and all of that. So
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here,
yeah,
Allison, one on
thank you,
one. Looking
Jill.
forward to seeing the dynamic duo back together next week.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes. and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.